Right now, I'm challenging myself to see if I can make 128 Regulation H teams that are each different from one another over the course of 128 days. Why 128, you might ask? At the end of the 128 days, we're going to do something special where we battle every team against each other in a single elimination bracket to see which team emerges on top. There will be some competitively strong teams, there will be some gimmick teams, and there will be some probably a good number of goofs and gaffs in there, so if you want to follow through to the end, subscribe so that you can keep up with each day. But without further ado, let's move on to day 15. Alright everybody, welcome back to another video, and in today's video we are going to be going over a team that I initially designed to be just a bunch of sun Pokemon put together, but it is actually entirely designed around Bayleef secretly, is what I realized after the fact. And you might be thinking, wow, Bayleef is so cool. I can't believe you're finally using Bayleef. Could you please tell me all about this Bayleef that you're using on the Sun team? And, well, okay, first of all, calm down just a bit. Like, I know it's Bayleef, but we can't be that excited about it. Even though it is Bayleef, after all. But starting off the Sun team here, we have Jumpluff, who is kind of similar to Bayleef because they're both grass types. And the thing that Jumpluff does really well is that Jumpluff has the Chlorophyll ability, which will make us super duper speedy inside of Sun. And I really don't think that there's that much that with the speed investment that we have on Jumpluff is going to be outspeeding Jumpluff, like even inside of Tailwind, which is pretty awesome. But our Jumpluff is going to be using Sleep Powder so that we can put things to sleep 75% of the time. We also have the Encore in case something uses a Protect or a Fake Out in front of us that we can lock them into that for usually the rest of the game. We also have the Helping Hand for boosting the damage of our Pokemon that are next to us. And we also have the Palling Puff for maybe getting a Sash but also healing the Pokemon that is next to us. And we have the Covert Cloak so that Jumpluff isn't getting faked out. And we have Terra Rock just because, I guess. I mean, it resists Ice and Fire, which we were previously weak to, which is pretty nice, but you really don't want to use the Terra on Jumpluff very often, but there is usage cases for going Terra Rock. Next up, we have our actual Sunsetter, the OG Sunsetter, I was about to say Alolan Ninetales out of sheer habit, the Cantonian Ninetales. And on our Cantonian Ninetales, we are going to be running the choice specs and having a lot of different type coverage in the Heat Wave, the Scorching Sands, the Solar Beam, which whenever we have our Drought up, we don't have to wait a turn for it to charge, and our Terra Blast with our Terra Fairy, because Terra Fairy complements Ninetales pretty well in its type coverage here as it allows it to hit dragons. Next up, we have Hisuian Typhlosion, who was the main reason that I wanted to build a bit of a Sun team today. Because Hisuian Typhlosion goes absolutely crazy because you just make it super duper fast with the Choice Scarf and it's already pretty good speed. And then you click Eruption and everything that pretty much isn't resistant to the Eruption dies. Especially when you have the Terra Fire and you can just guarantee clicking Terra Fire into everything and watching everything die. But in case we can't click Eruption, we have the Shadow Ball, which is our other stab option, but we also have the Overheat for dealing really good single target damage and then getting our special attack drop by 2. And we have the Fire Pledge, which is a move that not a lot of people talk about just because it's pretty niche, but I think in this format it could have some play. But basically there's a Fire Pledge, a Water Pledge, and a Grass Pledge, and they all interact with each other differently to create different field effects. But for this video, if you use Fire Pledge and Grass Pledge together, it will create a Field of Flames, I believe it's called. I didn't actually end up doing it in the battles that we're about to watch. But whenever the Field of Flames is active on the opponent's side, it will take a bit of health off the opponent. I'm not sure exactly how much it takes off. I think it's like a fourth. Okay, it doesn't do a fourth, it does an eighth of the maximum HP of each of the Pokemon on the field for 4 turns. Which, I mean, it's pretty much Gigantamax Charizard's effect, which we all know how busted that was during the Sword and Shield era. So if you can get off the Fire Pledge and the Grass Pledge, and since Typhlosion is so fast, it's really easy because once you use the first Fire Pledge, it will immediately call upon the Grass Pledge to activate, not dependent on the speed of the second Pokemon. And we are an open team sheet, so it's probably a little bit more practical to run Frisk. However, Frisk is going to be more useless whenever we bring this team into an open team sheet format in the 128 Battle Royale thing that we're going to do at the end of all these videos. So I just decided to keep it Blaze, and Blaze isn't a bad ability. It just means that whenever you're at a third lesser health, that you pretty much just get a choice specs for your fire type attacks. And next up, we finally have Bayleef. Bayleef is here, and it can hold the Eviolite because it is not a fully evolved Pokemon, and we also have the Leaf Guard ability, which means that we won't be getting put to sleep, or paralyzed, or burned, or poisoned, or freezed while the sun is up. Now that you can normally be freezed whenever the sun is up anyways. But our Bayleef set is entirely revolved around the idea of keeping Bayleef on the field for a very long time by using the Leech Seed in order to lower the opponent's health and raise our own health over time, along with the Synthesis, which will give us a lot of health back whenever sun is up, but half of our health back whenever sun isn't up. And then we have the Grass Pledge in order to combine with Hisuian Typhlosion to make that Field of Flames that we talked about before, and we have Protect in order to just stall turns while we get Leech Seed recovery, basically. Next up, we have a Pokemon that doesn't necessarily synergize with Sun. We have Stonejourner, and I really wanted to use Stonejourner in at least one video, so I'm glad that we're using Stonejourner pretty early on here, because it means we might get to use it a few more times down the road. But Stonejourner is really special because of its ability Power Spot, which means that it multiplies the base power of all moves used on your side by 1.3, which pretty much is giving it a free life orb to the Pokemon that's next to you. And our Stonejourner set is going to be using our defense in order to hit things hard with Body Press, but we also have the Rock Slide in case we need to use a spread attacker, and we have the Heat Crash, which synergizes with Sun a little bit, and Stonejourner is pretty heavy, so we can pick up some KOs with Heat Crash that we couldn't with Body Press or Rock Slide. And lastly, we have the Wide Guard because it makes it so that something has to attack twice into Stonejourner in one turn in order to get rid of Stonejourner as long as we're going for the Wide Guard. Because we have the Focus Sash item, which guarantees that we live at least one hit. Oh, did I not put a nature on Stone? Why does Stonejourner not have one of these? Oh, don't do that. Okay, well, Stonejourner has a nature now, but on the team paste, I think I gotta update the team paste, hold on. And lastly, to flesh out a lot of our matchups, we have the Salamence. And this Salamence was pretty popular on a team at the start of the regulation. I believe it was on a team with like Meowscarada and something else that I can't remember. But this Salamence is rocking the Stellar Terra in order to give us an immediate boost to our Dual Wing Beat, which is an 80 power base move that hits twice, so we can get Focus Sashes on things like maybe Whimsicott that has one, or we can do enough good flying type damage into Amogus in order to be able to KO it. Because it's really hard to get good physical flying type damage on a lot of the flying types, unless your name is like Staraptor. But we also have really hard-hitting moves in the Outrage, which we can't pick what target we hit, but more often than not, at least hitting one target is good enough for Salamence. And if we get faked out, we also have the Temper Flare, which will become 150 base power if our previous move fails, like, I don't know, hitting ourselves in confusion from Outrage, or missing our Dual Wing Beat, which is a very annoying 90% accurate. And the Salamence that was on the Meowscarada team was Moxie, but I wanted to go with Intimidate just to give all of our Pokemon a little bit more survivability. And we have the Clear Amulet so that our own attack isn't being dropped by things like Intimidate or Parting Shot. Not to name any names, but you know who you are. But yeah, I think you can very easily see how this team was subconsciously built around Bayleef and how good Bayleef is on this team. So let's get into some battles. Alright, so this first game is against a Mousehold Goldango weird Sableye team. I'm not exactly sure what this team has going on. They do have the Dragapult and the Incineroar though, which mainly stops us from leading Hisuian Typhlosion. So the game starts and they decide to lead Sableye and Mousehold. So I kind of regret not just leading Hisuian Typhlosion here, because Hisuian Typhlosion would have absolutely clapped this lead. Salamence and Stonejourner, they're not so bad either. The Mousehold goes for the Terra Normal as the Sableye gets off gravity, and they go for Population Bomb, and Population Bomb actually does 20% per hit, which means even without this crit that Salamence is about to take, it's attack and dying. I go for the Rock Slide just to get some spread damage, even though I probably should have just gone for Body Press into the Mousehold to assess that it was the threat. But you live and you learn, and now we have Typhlosion in, and Typhlosion is going to be fine as they Will-O-Wisp into Stonejourner, and we click Eruption, and that takes out both Mousehold and Sableye in one go. And in the back they have Goldango and Incineroar, and they've already used their Terra, and they decide to fake out Stonejourner because they can't fake out Hisuian Typhlosion. So we Eruption to take out the Goldango, and at this point, we're pretty good because we can just keep Eruptioning the Incineroar, and even though it resisted, it still takes a lot of damage from it. They knock off into Typhlosion, and that's going to KO Typhlosion because it's super effective as we Body Press into Incineroar. And with the Pokemon that we have in the back being Ninetales, we have just enough to take down Incineroar, but like imagine if it was Bayleef as the last slot, because the game would have been even more absolutely set up. Alright, this next game they have a Fire, Water, Grass Core, and they have the Sableye and the Goldango again, but they also have the Gardevoir who can do Trick Room and Telepathy things. But I decided to lead Salamence and Stonejourner again, since I think it's going to be hard to get Hisuian Typhlosion to start the game, and they lead something that would have been good into Hisuian Typhlosion starting the game. But I'm kind of fine with it. I just Wide Guard with Stonejourner as they Light Screen, and I Temper Flare into Goldango in order to decrease its health. It's a nasty plot with Goldango, but now that I've revealed the Wide Guard, I'm just going to Protect with Salamence, and they taunt into Stonejourner, which I could have just Wide Guarded again with Stonejourner, because Wide Guard has faster priority than Prankster, so I would have been fine to attack again with Salamence on this turn, but they decided to Terra Normal and then make it rain, which brings Stonejourner down to the Sash, as Stonejourner tried to go for the Heat Crash in order to do some damage, because we could have outsped the Goldango if it was super effective and then killed it using Salamence's Temper Flare. But the Goldango Terra Normaled, and they reflected this turn, and I tried to go for the dual Wing Beat, and I should have gone for the Stellar Terra in order to try and guarantee the KO here. But the Goldango lives, and they make it rain again. Stonejourner, unfortunately, is going to have to go down. But now they bring in Incineroar to maybe patch up the matchup as Goldango protects. And we go for the Eruption, and it doesn't really do much damage to either Mon, as we go for the Outrage here. Outrage doesn't do too much into Incineroar, as they fake out into Salamence, but the Eruption is able to take out Goldango, which is the big thing here, and Salamence is forced to flinch. I just decided to go for the Stellar Terra in order to maybe try and hit something with the Outrage to kill it, and unfortunately Outrage goes into the Milotic, which makes this a little bit more complicated as Typhlosion does get hit, and then parting shotted by the Incineroar as Sableye comes back in. But we're still outraging, and we can bring in Ninetales here in order to swap out all these debuffs on the Typhlosion as they burn, but we at least get to do some outrage damage into Sableye as Salamence has kind of outlived its usefulness at this point. But with Hisuian Typhlosion on the field, they taunt into Ninetales because that's the only thing that Sableye can really do. We overheat into Sableye to try and take it out in one hit, and we Solar Beam into Milotic, but that doesn't take out Milotic, as the Scald is going to go into Ninetales, and Milotic is going to get a little bit more of its health back. So now it's Ninetales versus the world as they fake out, and they do the Life Dew in order to get their health back. Milotic goes for the Protect in order to save itself, as I try to go for the Solar Beam into it, and Incineroar knocks us off, which means that we can now use Scorching Sands into Incineroar in order to get rid of it, but we don't have the boost from our Choice Band, and we do get rid of Incineroar. However, Milotic is able to KO us with Scald, so I think in that last game, what I should have done in order to play differently is I should have doubled into the Milotic slot with both the Shadow Ball and the Solar Beam in order to try and KO it, because the Sableye on the field really wasn't doing much at that point, and Milotic was kind of keeping everything else alive, and Shadow Ball would at least have still been neutral into the Sableye. But a bit of a difficult game with us not being able to KO the Goldango on that one turn, where we would have been in a much better spot if we had KO'd it, but that's just how it goes sometimes. Alright, here we have a Weezing team, and all the Weezing pieces are pretty interesting because Mimikyu really values its ability, Incineroar really values its ability, Ursaluna really values its ability to be able to hit ghost types, and Palafin does value its ability, but Palafin's ability will activate off the field even if a Weezing is on the field, so it doesn't really care about Weezing. But we decided to start Salamence and Typhlosion since I was expecting them to lead Palafin here, and I swap into Stonejourner to maybe catch the Palafin off guard, but they just decide to hard swap out Palafin for Incineroar. They get the Intimidate because they are Ability Shield, which means that the Weezing's Neutralizing Gas can't change Incineroar's ability, but we're clear Amulet on Salamence, so we don't take the attack drop here, as we try to go for just a normal Outrage, but Outrage doesn't land into the Weezing. We fake out with Salamence, and we body press into Incineroar to deal some good damage into it as I try to Will-O-Wisp into Salamence, so pretty crucial turn there. I decided to go for the Stellar Terra Outrage to do as much damage as I can, and Weezing actually takes that really well, as Parting Shot comes down to Stonejourner, and Palafin hits the field, and I went for the Rock Slide to try and maybe finish up a KO, but Weezing actually dodges it, which means that's also not going to get flinched even with a 30% chance, and Will-O-Wisp comes out into Salamence, which is not great. We're kind of having our fingers crossed that the Outrage goes into Palafin this turn. Stonejourner lives the Wave Crash, as we just saw, which is awesome. It's why you have so much physical bulk on Stonejourner. And Palafin takes a lot of Wave Crash damage, which means that Outrage comes out into it, and Body Press comes out into it, which KOs it, which is great, which means that we can use Hisuian Typhlosion more in the back, as Incineroar returns to the field, which it's probably not going to be doing too much. We Outrage into it because it decides not to fake out for whatever reason, as it knocks off into Stonejourner, and Weezing, it goes for the Gunk Shot, which is going to finish off Salamence. But at this point, since Palafin is gone, we have Typhlosion and Ninetales in the back, and Weezing is going to protect itself, but Incineroar has no way to save itself from the eruption, whittling off what little health it has left. And Heat Wave from Ninetales is going to pick up the rest of the game, since nothing at this point resists fire with Incineroar and Palafin gone. We go for the Eruption, and that KOs Weezing, which means that abilities are turned back on, and now Ninetales gets to use its Heat Wave in the Sun, but Ninetales misses, and Typhlosion gets the Earth Power sent into it, and Ursaluna goes Terra Normal to perhaps try and KO Ninetales, but Ninetales gets to land the Heat Wave the second time. Up next, we have a bit of a strange team here. The fact that they have Carbink makes me think that they really want to go for Trick Room with Ursaluna, but they also have things like the Espathra and the Amoonguss, which can be pretty hard to play around. I decided to lead Hisuian, Typhlosion, and Bayleef. Look at that, it's Bayleef. Bayleef's on the field. They go Terra Water Amoonguss in order to avoid dying to the Eruption, and they just decide to take out Typhlosion with Liquidation. But at this point, we got Bayleef on the field, who takes some damage from Sludge Bomb, I will admit. We get to bring in Ninetales, who activates the Drought, and Ninetales is threatening Solar Beam on things. Amoonguss protects itself, and we went for the Solar Beam into Amoonguss because it was the more critical one, and we went for the Leech Seed that turn, so unfortunately we didn't gain any ground. We get to go for Solar Beam into Amoonguss this turn, and unfortunately it doesn't KO it because it's Amoonguss. As we Leech Seed into Espathra, and they Spore into Ninetales, and Espathra is able to set up the Trick Room, and Espathra decides to leave since it doesn't want to see Speedy inside of Trick Room. A Sludge Bomb comes out into Bayleef, and Bayleef tries to Grass Pledge down Amoonguss for at least a little bit of damage. I Terra Fairy Ninetales, but they kind of call that by going Sludge Bomb into Ninetales, which is a little annoying. But Bayleef takes the Blood Moon, which is pretty nice, and we get to Leech Seed into Ursaluna, which is putting some pressure on Ursaluna to do something different. I decided to swap in Jumpluff since I think they're going to Earth Power in order to try and get rid of Ninetales this turn, and they do that, so Jumpluff gets to come in for free, and Bayleef gets a little bit more damage. They full-on Sludge Bomb crit into Jumpluff, which is a bit annoying, but they try to Blood Moon down Bayleef, and they do get the Blood Moon into Bayleef, but this allows us to Sleep Powder into Ursaluna, but the Ursaluna is Safety Goggles, so we don't roll a great thing there. Ninetales really needs to wake up, but we can Sleep Powder into Amoonguss at least, and with the Solar Beam lock-in from Ninetales, we can hit Ursaluna, and Amoonguss is going to be asleep. So they have Espathra left in the background, but Espathra protects on this turn as I try to Sleep Powder into it, and Ninetales is able to KO, or no, Ninetales isn't able to KO Amoonguss. Because we're running out of Solar Beam turns here, so I think I should have attacked into Amoonguss. We Encore into Espathra to force it to protect for the rest of the time, as now I decide to Solar Beam into Amoonguss in order to get rid of it. And Espathra is just speed boosting up, and Espathra's speed boost means that we can't Encore it back down into Protect with Jumpluff, since it'll be faster than Jumpluff eventually. Espathra gets its guaranteed Protect here as they try to Aqua Jet into Jumpluff, but with the Sun Up and the resistance, it doesn't do enough damage, as I Pollen Puff into Ninetales and get the Solar Beam in order to make sure that Ninetales lives the turn. So this turn, Espathra gets the Double Protect, which is the turn that I was planning to attack into it with our Pollen Puff and our Solar Beam, which more than likely would have KO'd it. However, the Double Protect means that they're going to be able to stall out our last turn of Sun, and because they are so fast and Ninetales is currently Choice Spec'd into Solar Beam, it means that we lose. So yeah, a bit unlucky there that they got the Double Protect. However, I think there were definitely moments in that match where I could have played better. This battle is against a Fire Water Grass core with Primarina, Incineroar, and Rillaboom, but they have the Sneasler, who can potentially be faster than Jumpluff, because Sneasler's base speed is higher than Jumpluff's, but their Unburden ability will activate whenever Rillaboom comes in because they're probably Grassy Seed. So they lead Incineroar and Primarina, and I lead Stonejourner and Salamence to try and get in some good damage. I decided to protect Salamence for the first turn, thinking that either Fake Out will come into it or Primarina will attack into it. But we at least get the body press into Incineroar's Primarina Calm Minds, but we don't really care about the Primarina Calm Mind, except we do because we miss our Dual Wing Beat, which is really frustrating. Hyper Voice comes out, and it's able to do damage into Salamence, and it gets Stonejourner down a little bit. Incineroar takes the body press, but it's Figgy Berry, so it goes back up, and they knock off into Salamence, which gets rid of our Clear Amulet, and they decide to swap in a Rillaboom, and I predicted Primarina to protect, but Primarina didn't protect. It went for Terra Steel, but we at least Wide Guard here, so if they go for Hyper Voice, we'll be good. We get to Dual Wing Beat down Rillaboom, which is a lot of good momentum for us, as they do Hyper Voice, so we get to save ourselves from getting knocked out this turn by the Primarina, and we baited out their Terra Steel, which is pretty nice. They are King Gambit here, though, and I'm not exactly sure King Gambit's able to Sucker Punch down Salamence at this point. However, I'm more than willing to Wide Guard just to try and save us, as we do get to Temper Flare down Primarina, and with the Terra Stellar boost, that is enough to KO Primarina. And they decide not to Sucker Punch into Stonejourner, they just attack normally into Stonejourner with Iron Head. But that leads the opponent to quit, and I don't exactly remember what I had in the back. I'm unironically kidding when I think it was Bayleef, but even if it was Hisuian Typhlosion and Ninetales, they definitely would have been able to clean up whatever's in the back. Alright, but in this next game, you'll get to see where Bayleef really especially shines. You'll see what I mean. So we start out Stonejourner and Salamence, which is a pretty nice lead because they're doing the thing that we did not too long ago with Armarouge here, where they're trying to pretend to be a Trick Room team, but they have Inteleon, and they lead Inteleon, which means they're probably going to flip turn into Armarouge to activate its weak armor and then try to sweep everything. So I protect Salamence, since I know Stonejourner has a Sash, and Inteleon isn't going to attack into Stonejourner, it attacks into Armarouge in order to activate its weak armor and its weakness policy, as they flip turn out into Indeedee to get the Psychic Terrain up, and Stonejourner is able to Rock Slide a little bit of damage into Armarouge, which is nice. But we now get to reveal the Wide Guard and Armarouge, as I try to go for the Outrage, since we can Expanding Force here, and I want to take out Indeedee at least, but we full land the Outrage into Armarouge, which is really nice. And Inteleon comes back in, and I Wide Guard again, kind of half expecting Inteleon to go for Icy Wind, since Inteleon doesn't have a very large kit here, so running Icy Wind is like a pretty common set on it, and if you are bringing it back versus bringing in like a Comfey or a Snorlax that could better deal with Salamence, you're probably bringing in Inteleon here to go for Icy Wind. So I go for the Wide Guard, and Indeedee decides to follow me in order to take the Outrage, and it takes the Outrage, and they do Icy Wind, but we get to Wide Guard the Icy Wind, so Salamence isn't getting hit by it. And then in comes Snorlax, and I Wide Guard again, just in case, but we Outrage into Inteleon, so that is less important as the opponent goes for the Snorlax Belly Drum. And look, it's Bayleef. Everybody look, Bayleef is on the field. And Outrage goes into Snorlax, which takes out Snorlax, which is awesome. So yeah, great contribution from Bayleef there. I was really not sure if we were going to win that one unless we had Bayleef on the field. Okay, if you thought that last game was solely dependent on Bayleef, this game is even more reliant on Bayleef. We start out, and they lead the Sneasler and the Rillaboom, and this is a pretty similar team to that last one we faced, where I thought the Sneasler might have been Grassy Seed, but they actually revealed to start the Grassy Seed on Sneasler on this completely different team. And they also have more Sun components on this team, which is a little scary, but they fake out into Jumpluff, but Jumpluff is Covert Cloak, so we get to sleep the Sneasler, which means that we deal with their maid in form of speed control. We try to sleep the Charizard, but we miss, which is a little unfortunate. We do Heat Wave, and that does good damage into both, but Charizard is able to take out Jumpluff. Charizard takes solar power damage, and we get to bring in Hisuian Typhlosion here, who, since Sneasler is still asleep, Typhlosion is going to be able to hit both and absolutely wreak havoc on both, and they bring in Rillaboom and Dragapult. At this point, I'm thinking I gotta bring in Bayleef, because Bayleef is going to save us this game entirely, absolutely. Give us the free switch out of Ninetales into Bayleef, as Bayleef exists on the field, kicks a critical hit fake out, which is very nice for don't look over there. Bayleef is absolutely doing everything that it can to support the team, and the opponent disappears, which was probably because Bayleef did something. So good job, Bayleef. So yeah, I hope you guys understand where I'm coming from when I say that Bayleef was really a core Pokemon on this team. And even though we didn't get to showcase Bayleef's full power by using Grass Pledge in combination with Hisuian Typhlosion, I think that combination of moves does have its important matchups, and it's kind of neat to see. So I wouldn't discount it later on in the 128 teams challenge. Even though, unfortunately, we didn't get to display here today, I think that Bayleef has done more than enough to showcase its true power. But thank you guys so much for watching. If you liked it, maybe consider leaving a like on the video, and even consider subscribing, and maybe even leave a comment telling me what your favorite thing about Bayleef is. But I will see you in the next one. Thank you.